Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 108, and for this one, I play a 5-5 meetup game at the Hollywood Park Casino. I get some revenge out there, so I'm excited to share that with you. But I've got a few announcements to make. The reason I'm putting out this video on a Friday is because there's been a change in the schedule. We were supposed to go out to Hoboken, New Jersey on Sunday, November 10th to the Wicked Wolf Tavern at noon, but we're going to a place called Black Bear. So it's a sports bar in Hoboken, so we're still going out there. Make sure you're there at noon if you can, because they're not gonna seat us unless most of the people are actually present. So we're teaming up with DraftKings. They're doing a big odds boost. I'll have more information in the description box below if you'd like to partake in some sports betting with Andrew and myself, but you do have to live in New Jersey if you wanna do that. All right, let's go ahead and get started. It's party time. We're back at Hollywood Park Casino in Southern California. We've got some work to do in 5-5. We're coming off a $6,000 loss in 5-10-20 in the previous session. So yeah, it'd be nice to win today. We get things rolling in the back room. We've got 10 tables for the meetup game. It's a lot more relaxed than the day before. Drinks are flowing. Everyone's having a good time. We buy in for 500, which is the max. Then shortly into it, we pick up pocket kings on the button in a straddle pot. It's one of those scenarios you dream about. The cutoff limps in. I raised to 40. The under the gun straddler calls. He doesn't have a very large stack. The cutoff calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It's Jack 8-5 with 2 diamonds. Both opponents check to me, looking to build this pot and eventually get it all in. I bet 80. Under the gun calls before I even have my chips out. The cutoff folds. It's heads up. The turn is a 10. It's not an ideal card since some straights get there and so does Jack 10. Under the gun checks. He has 253 left. Since I don't have the king of diamonds, it's very likely that it could be up against some kind of flush draw. Jamming's reasonable, but I'm worried that the words all in could scare him off a pair of jacks, so I make it 200. Under the gun calls again. I'm hoping for a low, non-diamond card. We get it. The river is the 6 of spades. Under the gun checks. I put in a stack of yellows to cover the opponent. He makes the call.
Kings? Kings are good. Kings are good.
Even though it barely makes a dent in the deficit that I'm in from the night before, it feels good to win a pot early on and have a strong hand pre-flop that holds. The dealer pushes all the chips in our direction, and we're up 400. Next we have 8 deuce suited in the under the gun straddle. 4 players limp in. I check. The flop comes King Jack 8 with 2 clubs. We have a pair and a flush draw. Small blind and big blind check. I bet 30. The button calls, the small blind calls, and the big blind check raises and makes it 210. He has about 415 total. We got it in yesterday for nearly a $6,000 pot with a flush draw. Ran it twice and lost both runouts. It doesn't deter me in this hand. I jam. The button folds, the small blind folds, the big blind calls. We don't have the option to run it twice, so we're likely going to need to hit something with only 2 cards to come. The turn is the 4 of spades. It's no help. The river is the queen of diamonds. That card's terrible. Straights get there and draws containing a queen make a pair. We break our draw and things aren't looking good. The big blind says that he called me, so I have to show first. I'm a little embarrassed, but I table my cards. They're obviously no good. Except the big blind rolls over 10-6 of clubs. He had a flush draw as well, and he didn't hit either. My pair of 8s with my monster kicker is enough to win the whole pot. It's nice to finally run into the bottom of someone's range in a situation like this. I've got a $900 profit in front of me, then I switch tables and pick up ace-9 suited in the small blind. Middle position player opens at 20. The hijack calls, cutoff calls, I call, and so does the big blind. We're going 5 ways to the flop. It's ace-queen-4 with 2 hearts and 1 club. We flop top pair, but our kicker isn't great. We're out of position, up against multiple opponents. Not a terrible situation, but not a great one either. I check, and so does everyone else. Ace-9 is probably good. The turn is a 5. It shouldn't change much. I bet 45. The big blind, middle position player, and hijack all fold. The action's on the cutoff, and he raises to 110. He only has 228 total. His raise doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He was last to act on the flop, and he checked, even though there were a lot of draws out there. Now the turn comes out. He's raising me when I'm the last opponent left. The only hands that he could have that are beating me given the action so far are ace-5 suited, which there's only 1 remaining combination of, and pocket 5s, which there are 3 combinations of. Seems more likely that he's trying to bluff me, so I look bad on the vlog. He has 118 behind. I'm not going away for a single raise, and I'm going to pretty much have to call a river jam no matter what, so. Bad news, we get called immediately.
Dude, that's not good. Get some dead. You have 5s? It's the only hand that made any sense. Nice. You made the ball.
Fortunately, we are back to running into the top of people's ranges. Later we're dealt pocket 9s under the gun +1 and open to 20. 3 players call. They don't like folding much here in Los Angeles. I don't blame them. I don't like folding either. Flop comes Jack 6-4 with 2 diamonds. It's not a great one when you're up against a lot of opponents. I check, middle position player checks, cutoff bets 30. The button folds. I'm facing a small bet from someone who has a face that you just can't trust, so I call. The middle position player calls. The turn is the deuce of hearts. I check. The middle position player and the cutoff both check behind me. There's no reason to think that either player is going to have anything too strong at this point. There was no bet or check raise on the flop from the middle position player, and the cutoff has now checked the turn when it was a complete blank. The river is a king. Not 100% sure that nines are best because I could be up against some weak jacks, but unless someone has king jack, I don't think I'll get called if I turn my hand into a bluff and bet big. I make it 200. That should do the trick. The middle position player folds. The cutoff is contemplating with his untrustable face what he should do, and he calls.
Man, that's not good. King 10. Oh, wow.
Set the flop there.
I'm a bit perplexed. The cutoff takes an odd line by calling an early position pre-flop raise with king 10 offsuit, then bets the flop small in a four-way pot with king high. Somehow he gets there, somehow a whale turns his hand into a big bluff, and he makes the maximum. We're bleeding Bradley dollars. We were up 900, but are only up 100 when we pick up pocket jacks, aka pocket jiggities, in middle position. I raise to 20, the button calls. The small blind with the face you can't trust calls as well. We go three ways to the flop. It's jack 6-4 with two spades. We've got top set of jiggities. The small blind checks. I just got caught bluffing and there are a few draws out there, so I'm gonna bet. I bet 30. The button calls. Small blind calls as well. What the hell do these guys have? The turn is a king. Small blind checks. I bet 100. The button calls. Maybe he has a flush draw containing a king. The small blind folds, so we're heads up. The river is an 8. 7-5 makes it straight, but other than that, there isn't too much to be worried about. I consider checking to induce a bluff from a missed flush draw. My current image, I may get called light if I bet big though. I jam for 440. The opponent Hollywoods for a bit, then he folds. He'd later tell me that he had queen 10 of spades, so he missed all kinds of draws. We win a medium-sized pot, and then here we have jack 6 suited in the small blind. It's a straddle pot. 3 players limp in for 10. I call. The big blind calls, and the under the gun straddler checks. We're going 6 ways to the flop. It's king 7-4 with 2 spades, so we've got a flush draw and a backdoor straight draw. Checks around. The turn is a 5. We pick up an open ender. I lead for 40. The big blind calls. The 4 other opponents fold. The river is the deuce of diamonds. We miss everything. I got the sense that the big blind was on a draw too, so I'm going to go ahead and fire again.
95?
Bet 95, 95. Never mind.
Big blind folds before I can get my chips out there, and we take it down. My 4th table of the night, I'm dealt ace deuce of spades in the hijack. Under the gun limps in. The player on my right raises to 20. I call. The under the gun player calls as well. We go 3 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out 9-7-6 with 2 spades. We've got a flush draw and 1 over. Checks to me. I bet 40. Under the gun calls. The initial pre-flop raiser folds. It's heads up. The turn is an ace, so we make top pair. Under the gun checks. A lot of the time I'll check here. I get the sense in this instance that I'm ahead, and I can get value out of my opponent, so I bet 60. Under the gun calls. The river is a 4. We missed the flush again. That seems to be a trend for me lately. We do have a hand with value though. Under the gun surprisingly jams for 125. There's another odd line from an opponent that doesn't make much sense to me. I ended up getting it in against another opponent earlier in a similar situation and was wrong because people just always have it. I consider folding here. I can't help myself though. I call. It ends up being a good decision. The opponent is not excited to show his cards. He eventually turns over king 8 of clubs for a busted straight draw. I show the ace deuce for the win.
I guess I made the block though.
You did make the block.
The night's going pretty well for the most part. Still, I'd like for it to be a little better. That's why I had the dealer give me pocket aces in the big blind. It's a straddle pot. 2 players limp in for 10. Cutoff raises to 50. It's a good situation to be in. I 3-bet to 200. Folds back to the cutoff. He tanks for a long time. Please jam, dude. Nope, he elects to flat. We're heads up. He has 665 left in his stack, and the flop comes 10-7-3 with 2 hearts. It's a great flop for our hand. There isn't too much in my opponent's range. He's going to connect with this. I also have the ace of hearts, so I don't even need to be worried about a flush draw. I down bet to 150. I want to keep hands in like ace king. Perhaps hands like jacks, queens, or kings will jam on me since I might bet the same amount if I had ace king myself. The cutoff is deciding what to do. Then we hear some sweet words. Cutoff announces that he's all in. I snap call. This is a monster pot, especially for a $500 cap game. I'm really only losing to pocket 10s at the moment, hoping that I'm good and can stay good. The turn is an 8. The river is a 9. It's not a great one. Any jack makes it straight. Luckily, the cutoff doesn't have one. He turns over pocket queens. I show the aces. It's a cooler situation for the opponent. We've got him covered. All the chips are coming towards us. It's been a long time since we've run well on the vlog, so it feels nice. In the last hand that we'll go over, I've got pocket queens, under the gun +2 in a straddle pot. I raised to 30. Middle position player calls. Small blind who got caught bluffing me earlier with king 8 suited wants revenge. He 3-bets to 110. He's stuck on the day and obviously isn't afraid to make moves against me. He only had 400 in his stack to start the hand, so I 4-bet to 500. It's enough to cover him. Middle position player folds. Small blind snap calls for less. It's tough to know if we're ahead or not. That's until the flop comes. It's queen 3 deuce. We have top set. That's usually going to be good. The turn is a 4. Small blind shows he has pocket king, so he gets unlucky. The river is a 9. We suck out to scoop another big pot and send the small blind straight to Pain Town. The luck has turned around for us though, and honestly, we needed a nice win. We have a mountain of chips and one more table to go, but don't play any significant hands there before cashing out. We got him today, played almost 7 hours, won 1830, which brings the grand total of this 2-day Hollywood Park Casino deal to negative $4,170. So we lost 6K yesterday, but we got a good chunk back, and it just feels good. Losing 2 days in a row would be real rough, so I'm happy to book a win. And we had a great turnout, 10 tables of 5-5, which was awesome. Now it's time to head to the bar. We get a great group together at the end, including fellow poker vloggers Justin Escalona and Q. Be sure to check them out on YouTube if you haven't yet. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons because it helps out the channel a ton. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'm happy to get back to you. Huge thanks goes out to Hollywood Park Casino and everybody who showed up out there. We had a lot of fun. We did 2 separate meetup games. The last video I put out was 5, 10, 20. That was a high stakes meetup game. And if you haven't seen that video, feel free to not watch it. I got wrecked, $6,000. Actually, you should watch it. It's probably gonna end up being one of my favorite videos that I put out once I look back at it in a couple years or something. It's hard to put out videos when you get wrecked like that and you don't play well. But I was happy to win the next day, which is what you saw in this video. It's nice to win a good chunk back, you know, after you get smoked like that. I'm in South Dakota right now. You can see this isn't the normal location. We've got a meetup game here, and then we're going to Hoboken, New Jersey. We had a location change. We're going November 10th. We're having a football watch party in conjunction with DraftKings. I'll have more information in the description box below, but we're going to the Black Bear sports bar. So come hang out with us, have some drinks, watch some football, play some sports bets, and have a good time with Andrew and myself. And finally, last meetup game that I'm gonna announce is November 15th and 16th at Grayton Casino. It's in Northern California, about an hour away from San Francisco. So it's right where I grew up, and I'm really excited about that. My whole family's gonna be there, and it should be cool, guys. So anyway, hope you're all doing well. Good luck at the tables, and I'll see you next time.